Ooh, getting better at timing that. I'm getting better at timing that. 7:14, 1 minute early. Jorge Ventura. I don't think you have to argue that he is the, I don't know, premier border reporter. There's no one going deeper into the border. There's no one that knows about the border. There's no one exploring the border situation more than him. We had him on the show. When did we have him on the show? I think it's been less than a month. This kid, and I only call him a kid because he's younger than me, but he's a savage. He's so good at what he does. He goes down there. He's bringing back authentic, quality, honest reporting. There's the, I hate to break it up in segments, but there's obviously the human interest, compassion part that, like, no one wants to see people struggling the way these people are as they cross the border. And because they're just in some way, you know, what's the line? We're all somehow related within 5 degrees of separation or 6 degrees of separation. We all know each other, and that's when shit gets real. But on the other hand, it's a mess, and it's jeopardizing the security of this country, their country. Kids are being hurt, adults are being hurt, and it is no bueno. I am going to, he just finished a short documentary. It is called Cartelville. It is not what is happening at the border, but it's what's happening in California, in Southern California, and what he refers to, and I guess what is called the Antelope Valley, Palmdale, and I think Lancaster. So I'm going to show you this trailer now.
These marijuana grows are either connected to Mexican cartels or high-level criminal organizations that also use human trafficking, as they've used workers to work these grows. On this grow, there was 5 Chinese nationals that were working this grow that are undocumented, don't speak any English, and are most likely were human trafficked here into the United States to work on these illegal grow ops.
Their whole purpose to come here was just to tend for the grow, and then it helps cover their costs for whoever brought them over.
Mexican cartel-related operations that have exploded in the Antelope Valley.
It doesn't stop.
We're 300 miles away from the border, and we have one of the largest illegal drug operations happening in the backyard in the high deserts of Los Angeles.
It's accelerating to the degree that we're just...
This looks like a video game. This isn't a video game. This is real. Those are assault weapons.
I mean, they are way ahead of us. We can't seem to get one step ahead of them.
This is the Cartels. We are very, very close to driving down the freeway and seeing bodies hanging from the overpasses. That is what's coming.
There it is. It's crazy. A few, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, I was in India, Africa, China, all over to South America, Central America. As I've told you guys before, I filmed documentaries and I filmed in over 100 countries. And there's things that I would see around the world. And they were always really, really tough situations. And there were things that I would see around the world that I never thought that I would witness here in the United States. And one of them was tent cities. You would see these massive slums or just tent cities or just people just living in tents all around these massive metropolises that dwarf, you know, New York City, just these huge cities. So some huge cities of millions of people would basically be tent cities. You wouldn't see any like what we consider homes in them, like wooden concrete structures. That being said, they're here today. You can't go anywhere in California, I feel like, without seeing a tent city. And so that is here. And now what this documentary exposes, and we're going to have Jorge Ventura, one of the filmmakers, on here in a minute, who has been a guest on the show before. you're going to hear stories of things that are going on in Southern California that you cannot believe is the United States, let alone California, which should be the greatest state in the union, being that I think of it, if it was its own country, it would be like the 5th or 6th world's largest economy. And yet there are cartels setting up drug operations on land that they don't own, and no one is stopping them. And these aren't isolated incidents. These are like, this is on the reg. And so we have Jorge Ventura. He was on the show before. What he's very well known for, and even what I would consider famous for, is his work that he's done at the border, showing just the chaos. I think his words were, a humanitarian crisis at the border. Lex, if you are you watching Matt on his channel? I don't know what you're talking about, but you almost pissed me off. You're lucky you didn't go anywhere. Wow, I had no idea it was this bad. Oh man. And that's the thing. Let's find out. Let's ask him, is this just more drama bullshit, or is this real? Because I watched the doc. It came out today. And I watched it. It's 36 minutes long, and it's not part of me is like, who gives a shit? Let these guys grow weed wherever they want. What do I care? But there are some implications that and some things we definitely need answers to. Jorge, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good.
Good to be back with you, brother.
Thank you. We just watched the trailer.
Awesome. I'm glad.
It's called the Cartel. What is the official name?
Cartelville USA. I don't have the title right in front of me. I believe it's Cartelville USA. Americans flee as cartels take over their small towns out here in the good old United States.
And it premiered this evening?
Premieres tomorrow.
And where does it premiere? So
the cool thing is we got our own website for it. So it's going to be carteldoc.com. So carteldoc.com. You get to watch the full trailer there, the full documentary. If you can't get to carteldoc.com, but I think you guys should, you could also go on dailycaller.com, and then our Daily Caller website will redirect you there. For anyone that follows me on Insta, it's going to be really easy tomorrow. You just click that link in my bio, and all the links are going to be there. Okay,
give me. I'm going to write it here on. Do I have your Instagram right there, Jorge Ventura TV?
Yes.
Okay. And so the website. Tell me the website again.
Carteldoc.com. So so Cartel, then DOC.com doc. So yeah, we're gonna have its own website, which I think is gonna be really neat. Like that, you could kind of get all the info there. You could watch the trailer, you could leave a review, and then obviously from there you could share it on to any family and friends.
And that, do I have it spelled right there at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
God, look at technology. Just a one-man show. I just typed that shit in and bam, there it is. I love it. I watched the doc. It's 36 minutes of very well spent time, especially because it's so relevant right now with all the other work that Jorge's doing in regards to what he's seeing, witnessing, and reporting what's going on the border. Let me start with why should we care? Like, marijuana growing is legal in California. The documentary explores the fact that people are coming into Antelope Valley. Where is Antelope Valley exactly, for those of us who are geographically?
Yeah, so Antelope Valley is in North LA County. So let's say, for folks who live in Los Angeles, when you go to Vegas, you pass the Antelope Valley. So we're in North LA County. We're kind of on the way to Bakersfield as well. Very desert, rural community. We got communities out here like Neenah, Palmdale, Eastside, Lancaster, Valencia, Acton. And essentially what I would say is the reason we should care is because, let's say, if you just talk to someone off the street and say, hey, did you know about illegal marijuana operations? The big thing is people just shrug their shoulders and say, well, yeah, it's just weed. Like, who cares? It's probably like two hippie dudes in the middle of nowhere, smoking pot, growing their own pot. No one has an issue with that. It's that these cartels are kind of creating this huge criminal black market enterprise, and it's connected to human trafficking, human smuggling, and there's a violence element attached to this too, because it's like these cartels are coming in and they're actually starting to shoot at American citizens. You're going to see it in the documentary. We interview San Bernardino County Shannon Dyke is the sheriff, who mentions to us that his officers have been shot at the LA County Sheriff here in LA County, Alex Villanova. Same thing. So there's a criminal element. There is a human smuggling, human trafficking element connected, which is like we're basically seeing basically slavery on American soil with labor trafficking is the word for it. But the two other issues that are, well, the one issue that's extremely important to Californians, even if you don't live in this area, is the water theft of these drug cartels. So since these are illegal marijuana operations, everyone knows in the world that marijuana needs water to grow. These cartels are stealing the water from our California aqueducts. If they don't get it from the aqueduct, they'll drill their own illegal well and tap into the water lines, or they'll go to these other American citizens that live in these desert communities, and they'll tap into their wells and steal their water. So a statistic that should scare everyone is every day these illegal marijuana operations are operating, between 3 million to 9.6 million water gallons are being wasted. And if you live in California, you know how crucial water is, especially with the drought. I live in Palmdale, so if our household goes over a certain threshold on the water gallons, we get billed pretty heavy, and then we get a pretty bad tax on it. So these cartels are stealing water, they're shooting, and there's a connection to a lot of these homicides. So the police are finding these bodies buried in the middle of the desert, connected to illegal marijuana grows. Some of these workers that have ran away have been shot and killed. So, a lot of these migrants are essentially being forced to work these grow ops, and also the environment. So these guys are bringing in pesticides and chemicals that are illegal in the United States. They spray this on the marijuana because they don't want any bears or any outdoor animals to eat the marijuana. But the thing is, these chemicals actually seep into the desert ground and into our riverbeds and then make it into our water. So environment, water, the huge criminal element with the shootings and like threatening real American citizens, like with weapons, all this stuff. There's a real estate aspect as well. So for us, this is a pretty big deal. And the reason I think, I picked this issue is because it is extremely underreported. I can't find many people that even know that this is happening. So here in LA County, where I'm at, we have over 500 illegal marijuana operations. In the documentary, we not only spend time in LA County, we swing over to our next door neighbor, San Bernardino County. San Bernardino County has over 1,000 illegal marijuana grows. So just between two counties, we're at over 1,500, and they're controlled mainly by three criminal fractions. So we found the Mexican drug cartels are involved, which is more connected to Sinaloa. We find the Chinese mafia is involved. So the Chinese mafia is smuggling Chinese national migrants through our southern border and then using those migrants as labor traffickers here in the United States. And then our third group is the
Hey.
The Armenian.
Hey. Go ahead if you have to. If you have to spread vicious rumors, go ahead.
But basically, no. But Sevan, I do feel that all these issues.
He's gonna say the Armenians. He's gonna say the innocent, sweet little Armenians, just the little old grandmothers eating their baklava. He's saying that they're somehow involved with these big marijuana farms. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, that's for people who don't know. Is that about 300 miles from the Mexican border?
I would say so, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, there's another huge metropolis south of Los Angeles, and it's called San Diego. So a lot of people think Los Angeles is right on the border. It's not. There's San Diego, and then of course there's a bunch of other stuff. But for just ease, it goes L.A., San Diego, and the Mexico. So this is northern Los Angeles. It's basically a desert. Is that fair to say?
Yes, very, very desert. Kind of has the Wild Wild West type of vibes out here.
Okay, and there's two things going on. In this documentary is reporting basically two things. One of them scares the shit out of me. One of them is like whatever. Basically, there's one faction that's basically buying real estate and growing this marijuana on the real estate, and for what and somehow that needs to be just made legal. Like they need to get those people in line with buying the water, buying the right permits, growing the right number of plants, jumping through whatever fucking red tape there is. The part that scares the shit out of me, and this is, I think we need to clarify this. When you say that there are 500 illegal grows in this area, what was the name of the area you called it? Antelope Valley?
Yes.
Or Palmdale? Okay. Yep. And then 1,000 in San Bernardino County. My neighborhood alone in Santa Cruz probably has 500 illegal grows. He's not talking about like the 18 plants I had in my backyard last year. And you'll see this in the documentary. And this is the part that scared me. The cartel is so brazen that they're putting up basically farms on land that they don't own.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of shit that you kind of think only happens south out in foreign countries, like south of, you know, Mexico and south, right? That someone could come onto your land, prop up a farm, and if you go mess with them, they'll shoot you dead. But that's what it's starting to look like, right? They're testing the waters of putting up, and they're big farms. They're like 1 or 2 acre indoor farms, right? They're these just tons of, maybe more.
And in that documentary, Sevan, we do a kind of a drone shot. And we discovered an illegal marijuana operation that was 10 miles long. I mean, this thing looks like it was operated by like Amazon or Jeff Bezos. And that's, I think, the biggest, I think what people are going to be shocked is just to see how wide open. And like you said, brazen. Like these guys know nothing's going to happen to them. They know that they're not going to be approached. And when I interview these homeowners who are living next to them, they legitimately have no go zones now in these communities because they know, hey, if we hike over there, we ride our quad over there, it's going to be our last visit. These guys shoot at American citizens all the time. It's not like they're being kind of like sneaky about it. I mean, they're out in the open. They steal water all the time out in the open. And if you call the local sheriff to say, hey, sheriff, can you come out here? We're witnessing water theft. The sheriff's like, hey, we're an hour away. So by the time we get there, that process is done. The reason why the police doesn't even go out there to these communities because they know that these cartels are heavily armed. And for instance, like an LA County sheriff, they did a 10-day raid on these grows here in the Antelope Valley back in July. And those LA County sheriff, they couldn't even do that operation by themselves. They had to do this with Riverside County, with Ventura County. They had to get in contact with the DEA and the DOJ to send special agents. So this is an expensive procedure, even when it comes to raid. So in July, they raided up to, I believe it was like $1.4 billion worth of illegal marijuana. I mean, just a 10-day operation cost the department $1 million.
Wait, they confiscated 1.4 billion in marijuana in those 10 days?
Yes, and they arrested 131 people. The majority of those individuals arrested were undocumented immigrants, most likely connected to human trafficking. So when I talk to LA County sheriffs, they say, look, the big problem right now is Prop 64. So Prop 64, when it passed in California, it legalized cannabis statewide. No one is arguing on that issue. Okay, that's not the problem. It made illegal cultivation from a felony down to a misdemeanor, and that just kind of let open the floodgates on this black market industry. So, you know, for a legal grower, they got to jump through hoops and red tapes to get it legalized. Then they get tax heavy, so they're not really incentivized to do it legally. It's to do it illegally. We even found out that 80% of the marijuana in California is all black market. So the state isn't seeing any tax revenue. And basically the Mexican drug cartels are saying, hey, if we could go into California, not only can we do this black market, but if we get caught, we're just gonna get slapped with a misdemeanor charge. I'm talking about $500. Like Sevan, if I run a red light right now, these guys will take away my car in a month and tow it forever and take away my license if I don't pay that little traffic ticket. But if you're doing criminal element stealing water, I mean, you're gonna get a $500 misdemeanor. So when I talk to LA County, they say, hey, what helps us when it comes to the charges is we're looking for weapons, we're looking for human smuggling, we're looking for women and children on these grows like that. We can attach a felony charge when we bring it to the DA, the LA County DA, Jorge Cascone, very progressive, soft on crime. He came from San Francisco, so you already know this guy's not good. So he's very soft. But our next door neighbor, which is their DA in San Bernardino County, is Jason Anderson. Completely different approach. This guy, Jason Anderson, 100% against this stuff. He's going hard. The LA County sheriffs in the San Bernardino County sheriffs, they are, just ways ahead of LA County when it comes to actually containing these grows and making raids. And look, San Bernardino is the biggest county in the United States when it comes to landmass. It runs all the way to Arizona. So,
wow.
But, so they have 1,000 of these grows and they're just trying to somehow manage it, but it kind of seems like they're playing whack-a-mole right now.
In your estimation, is there someone on the inside on the take?
So I haven't found it yet, but it just seems like that something like that is going on where whether it's board of supervisors that are being paid off, city council members, or even the DA, there's something involved where these guys are not even addressing the issue. The thing that I try to also mention,
it stands out in your documentary, by the way. That was the first thing I'm like, you obviously interview a lot of police who are very serious about it, and you interview a lot of people who are very serious about it. But the whole time I'm like, man, someone is on the take on the inside. There's no way this can be happening unless someone's on the take.
And I think the one thing that kind of surprised me too, bro, was that like, just a couple months ago, we had a recall race here in California. I didn't even hear this issue when it came from Newsom and the Republican candidates that ran against him. I didn't hear this issue brought up one time. I didn't say, hey, we have a cartel, drug, illegal marijuana, water theft, human smuggling crisis, happening. This is not a new issue. Like I want to make people clear. Like this is not like, oh my God, I discovered this issue. This started off in Northern California. So it went from Northern California and it trickled here, and they found the desert. And the desert is perfect because there's literally no law enforcement out there. I mean, it feels like, when we were reporting out there, it felt like we were basically in Mexico, because if these guys confronted us, no local sheriff was going to save our life.
So that brings me. So there is a scene in the movie where you guys roll up on a guy who's stealing water from a fire hydrant, and absolutely nuts to me, right? I'm a suburb kid. Like no one messes with fire hydrants. You'd be in big trouble. And the guy's just brazen. He doesn't give a shit. And then there's also you guys. I don't remember the exact details, but you are at a bust. They bust it. And you basically say, hey, when they bust these places, they basically within a month are rebuilt. And you went back 2 weeks later, and you can see that it's already been, the fencing around the farm is already being rebuilt. The cartels are like, they don't even care. The cops come, bust the place, and the cartel comes back and rebuilds the farm. It's
that's one of the things that
I can't even believe that's the United States.
Really frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to point out to these people is hopefully, like, look, I want this documentary to open people's eyes to say, how the hell did we let this happen with policies where we literally have drug cartels in our backyard and they operate in the wide open, and it just seems that they're getting more emboldened, and this all starts from the southern border. So I just want to put out a quick stat for everyone. So Axios in September put out a report saying 1 out of every 3 unaccompanied children, minors, that get released into the United States, the government loses track of. The situation got so bad that the DOJ, Department of Justice, is running an investigation on our own government to see if we are releasing unaccompanied minors to labor traffickers. So in this documentary, you will see real life labor trafficking. This is part of labor trafficking, getting forced to work these girls. And then what these cartels do is then they arm these migrants. So now these migrants are literally fighting other migrants with another cartel faction, and it's just become a huge mess. They're literally turning a lot of these desert communities into ghost towns because they've taken over the properties. And then, a lot of these people, they get sick of living here after shootings and cartel and the water theft. They're like, why would I put up with this? So, once they sell their house, guess who's buying that house? The cartel, because they're always willing to pay
the Armenians
above market value. Exactly.
The Armenians. Are these guys fighting each other? Are these guys having problems with each other? The Chinese, the Armenians, and the Mexicans? Are they so far so good? They're not fighting with each other.
Well, look, they're all fighting for controls of certain areas. So, for instance, in Acton, California, when you're in Acton, 90% of the illegal marijuana grows in Acton are connected to the Armenian crime organizations. What the Armenians like to do, what we've seen from our reporting, is Armenians like to buy homes. And what they'll do is they will not do an outdoor grow. They'll gut the whole inside of the house and do an indoor grow. So the Armenians like the indoor grow, where it's the Chinese drug cartels and the Chinese mafia who are more connected to these large outdoor grows where it's like, just massive amount of acres and land that they're doing this with.
Chinese ambition. How are the dispensaries involved? What are they doing with this weed? How's it being offloaded?
So, I mean, some of the main thing for these guys is to get all this pot, and then what they'll do is they'll ship it to the East Coast where they can make 3 times the rate. Now, will they sell it to a legal dispensary here or there? Yes, they will. For a legal dispensary, it's like, hey, I could take this weed, no tax, off the market, off the books. Why not? That's not the big issue. It's the majority for them is shipping it to the East Coast. The problem is, and I kind of I don't want people to be like, oh, this is like this has nothing to do with the pot. Like if it was 2 hippie guys in the middle of nowhere, it would be great. But it's just all the criminal elements connected just for this product. So, maybe we have to revisit Prop 64 and do something like, hey, if you're a legal grower, you could maybe grow up to, I'm thinking 25 plants, and then maybe a little bit higher. You go up to a 30, 40 plant, and then after that, it has to be a felony or something like that, because we need something where these cartels are paying the price. And if they're undocumented and you get a felony charge, we got to deport these people. I don't know why we're not deporting. Like, send them back, and you can't be here. You committed a felony here and you're undocumented.
Or do something to completely something needs to be done to completely undermine the business side of it, right? Like, basically whatever we've done when proponents of legalizing marijuana were standing behind it, one of the cornerstones of that was, hey, legalize it and it'll take the wind out of the sails of the cartels. And whatever they've done with that law has not taken the winds out of the sails of the cartels. Unfortunately, what it's done is it made it so that they can grow it in the United States. They don't even have to just grow it in Mexico now, right?
Exactly.
How is the rest of the political turmoil and chaos in this country also adding to this? Do you know what I mean by that? There's basically the whole country is obsessed with racism and sex, and by sex I mean this misuse of the word gender, politics. How is that? Is that opening up the doors for these people also?
So that's a great question, and kind of what played a role, Sevan, was when it's the Black Lives Matter protest last year. And the reason why I say this is because obviously, guys, as you guys know, last year there was a huge defund the police movement, especially here in Los Angeles, and it worked. City council started cutting funds, started cutting units that the law enforcement here needs. So that really played a part into what we're seeing now. Because now when I speak to Alex Villanova here, the LA County Sheriff, they're like, hey, we wish that we could be like San Bernardino County and have marijuana enforcement teams every single day, making raids, but we don't have the money to. We've literally been, kind of handcuffed by the defund the police movement. So that's playing a role. A lot of this progressive policies here in LA County have played a role in it, because now it's like almost we don't want to throw anyone in jail. We're literally letting rapists and murderers out early. In our board of supervisors here in LA County, we've got one Republican, Catherine Barger, who is trying to voice this issue against 4 liberals that don't see this really as an issue. So the defund the police movement played a major role in opening the floodgates in this cartel problem.
Is Sheriff Villanova the one that went live today on his Instagram? Did you see that? Is that the guy?
I'm not sure if he went live, but he's making headlines right now because he's saying he will not enforce the vaccine mandate for his sheriffs.
Yeah, and he also said something else that was fascinating today. He went live on his Instagram today, and I follow him, and he was basically talking about the supervisors and how they were enforcing gender equality in the workplace. Now, first of all, that's the complete misuse of the word gender. There is no such thing as gender. Gender is someone's imagination. It's what we make up. Like, for example, I don't know what my gender is because I refuse to imagine what it is. I know what my sex is. It's male. How do I know that? Because I have a penis. My gender is irrelevant to me. Irrelevant. I'll wear a dress, paint my nails, or I'll wear a cowboy hat and shoot guns. Like, I don't give a fuck. But he uses the word gender, which frustrates me because it's a misrepresentation. But gender's like snuffleupagus, just not real. But he basically, it was fascinating because the LA County supervisors were saying that he needs to have a more inclusive men and women in the sheriff's department. And then he starts reading the numbers of men versus women in the department. I cannot believe the equality they have. And by equality, I don't mean it in the sense that Martin Luther King used it. I mean it in the mathematical sense. There's a ton of women. There was a point where there were 2 assistant sheriffs and 1 male assistant sheriff. There's 6 divisions. There's like 12 division heads, and 6 of them are women. These are like the very top of the food chain in the LA County Sheriff's Department. I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's a whole other story. I don't want to get sidetracked on, but I'm anyone who everyone should follow that guy, the LA County sheriff. What's his name? Villanova.
Alex Villanova. Yes.
Yeah, he's fighting the good fight. What happened? There was a guy you're interviewing in the documentary, and he gets a phone call from his neighbor, and they say, "Hey, there's a marijuana grow on your property."
So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially what happened with him, so his name is Frank, and we meet with Frank. So Frank has massive land out here in the Antelope Valley. We're talking about a 40-acre property. So he was kind of explaining a story one day where he gets a call, and his friend says, "Hey, I think you're growing, are you growing pot in your backyard and stuff?" And Frank's like, "Oh, absolutely not." And what he found out was that these cartels were growing pot on his land with his water, and they made this kind of, it was almost like a 3-mile, I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if I'm even explaining it right. This 3-mile black kind of pipe that was literally stealing water from Frank's property and offloading it back to them wherever they were. So it was something that was fascinating because we've I had no idea about this, like things like this were happening. So Frank was just kind of explaining the process of like, hey, this is how I found out that they were stealing water from me. Is they had a 3-mile long black pipe connected to one of my water pipes, stealing water, and then they were because his property is so big, they were actually growing weed on his property. So it was fascinating to see something like that, and Frank shared that information, and it's like I said, it was insane. And I want to say this one thing. So all the people that we interviewed, I want to make it very clear. There's never been a story. You can look up local news, any coverage on these marijuana grows here in the desert. I can't speak for North Cal, but here in our desert, these residents were all too scared to even do interviews with the local interviews, any mainstream. They would never want to be on camera. They agreed to be on camera with us because they trusted us, and they were like, hey, we want you to tell our story because no one is fighting for us. So, for these people, Congressman Mike Garcia is a very big deal because to have a representative that's actively talking about this, bringing this to DC, talking to the DA and DOJ, it means the world to them, because living out here in the desert, it almost feels like no one represents you, because since you're in a rural community, you have basically no media coverage. No politicians ever come out to campaign to you because since you're in a rural community, you don't have you don't have money for them. They'd rather go to like Santa Clarita and Valencia. So for these people, this election coming up in 2022 for Mike Garcia and his opponent, Democrat Christy Smith, it's everything. And for those who don't know, last year, Mike Garcia won in a special election against Christy Smith by less than 500 votes. So this is going to be a really close election next year. And if Christy Smith wins, the Democrat, it almost feels like this war against the cartels will be officially lost.
Oh man. There was a scene in the movie where you go into a home and it looks like it's abandoned home, and you find guns in there, or a gun sitting on a bed. Now, so you basically said that when you're out there, it's basically the wild, wild west. Or no, you said it feels like it's like you're in Mexico, right? And a sheriff could be hours away from you. Tell me about that scene. How did you end up at that house? Were you scared? Why was there a gun there? Did that mean someone was coming back for it? Can you fill me in on that? Was there a police officer with you?
Yeah, so this was very interesting kind of during our reporting is like, we would interview a homeowner that was literally like living next to these grows. And normally what would happen is after our interviews, the homeowners would always be like, hey, if you want, I could take you to the marijuana grow. You want to hop in my car? And we would be like, oh, of course. So after we finished an interview, the homeowner said, hey, just 2 days ago, LA County just raided this illegal marijuana grow. He's like, if you want, I could take you to the grow. He's like, I don't think we could get on the property, but I'll take you to the grow. So he takes us to this grow, and we actually bust open the lock. I think LA County the sheriffs put a lock on it. We busted open, and we did some filming inside a grow that was just raided. So just kind of showing people the infrastructure, the poop houses, that little chemical pool that they kind of build with all the chemicals.
Yeah.
In there. And they usually what they do is there's always a trailer or whatever, because that's where the worker will live. And like I said, they armed these people. So it was fascinating that while we were there, that the weapon was still there. So we got some footage of that, and then we just got out of there. But basically, that was the illegal grow that was raided in less than 2 weeks. It was already back up with the infrastructure, and it was back to running again.
Do you tell the police, hey, we went to this house and I went in the house and I saw a gun there?
We did report it. Yes.
I mean, I have so many questions. Like, did the police see the gun and leave it there? I mean, it begs more questions if someone's on the take.
That right there is something that we were wondering too, is why was, the weapon just left in the trailer? I've never seen anything like this. So I was shocked to see it, but that's one thing that frustrates the residents is, like, let's say they make a bust on a grow, they don't destroy the infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure stays there. So another cartel or that same faction would just say, hey, in another week or two, let's get that thing back up and running. And that's exactly what we saw there. In literally less than 2 weeks, it was already back up. Walls, it already had the hoop houses. And that was kind of a big moment because we want to show the audience of, like, this is literally playing whack-a-mole in real life.
It was really cool that you showed that, by the way, when you showed the perimeter had been rebuilt and all that wood. And that means someone's pumping a lot of money into it too, because we know plywood's like, I don't know, $70 a sheet now. And that was like a couple acres of plywood. I mean, they had completely built a plywood fence up around the raid zone.
And another little tactic, what they'll do, and I didn't know this. It's called mulch. Is they'll literally use a bunch of dirt and kind of a little bit of some trash, and they'll build up these what they call brims. So literally they'll make a wall with dirt, and they'll surround the whole growing operation with these walls of dirt. So like, let's say if you're driving on a major highway, like the 138 out there, and if you just look to your left, you won't even see the hoop houses or anything because the dirt is so high. So for you, you're just like, oh, it's it's just a desert, whatever. You get a little bit closer, you're like, wait a minute, there's an illegal grow up happening inside this wall of dirt.
Are there so many? What would it take to stop this? So I remember hearing during the housing foreclosures, I don't remember if it was 2008 or 2011, they said it really doesn't matter if your house gets foreclosed on because there's so many houses that have been foreclosed on that no one can kick you out of your house for like 6 years. Like the police won't be there for 6 years to kick you out or something because it was just insane, right? Is it like that here? It's like there's so many illegal, and by illegal grows, we're not talking about like the kid who has 14 plants in his closet and the law is 6 plants. God knows there's a million of those in California. But are there so many of these big farm grows or these massive indoor grows that there is no stopping it? Is it completely lost by no stopping it? Is it completely lost on the battle of eradicating them one by one, like the game you're saying, playing whack-a-mole? And does it have to be more of a legal or a political thing? Like, hey, okay, what we're going to do is they have to figure out a way to make marijuana so cheap that it knocks these guys out of business. Like, what's the solution here? Do you see what I'm saying? Like you're saying they can't pull these operations out fast enough.
Exactly. So kind of the way that I would explain it is, when let's say you're in a big city like New York or LA, and it feels like on almost every street corner, there's a Starbucks and McDonald's. When you're in the desert out there, it feels exactly like that. So you look left, you look right, as far as your eye could go, operation. So it does feel like the battle is lost on that end. I think something that could, I don't have, the answers or the solutions. If I did, I'd be probably the mayor of the city. But look, I think one thing that would for sure help is, and I don't know how this looks like, is attaching a felony charge once you pass a certain limit. And like kind of what you said earlier, so I'm like, look, if the legal is 6 plants and the kid is growing 14, that's not what we're talking about here. Something more on the mass scale where if you are over 40 marijuana plants and you're in an uncorporated area in Los Angeles, it has to be an automatic felony with a pretty heavy charge. So that
what scares me about that, Jorge, is that if there is someone on the take, then it's gonna be 4 high school kids who decided that they wanted to grow 300 plants, but they didn't have the savvy that the Armenians, the Chinese, or the Mexicans has. That's why I feel like
it's a tough one.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just exploring it here with you. I'm not opposed to the felony, but I just see it as I feel like we have to undermine the whole business. Like just somehow either de-incentivize them to sell it because of the finance reason, or incentivize someone like Philip Morris to come in and just fucking take over the market. I mean,
another kind of, and I'm glad you brought it up, but kind of another way that I've heard just from local law enforcement is maybe increasing the water theft penalties. Maybe make it even if you steal 5 gallons of water, felony charge, heavy fine. Because
I'm way more down with that.
With that, you can't even grow the weed. So with that, you can't even get started on everything else that we're kind of seeing. So maybe something like that. I know San Bernardino County, their board of supervisors, they got 4 Republicans versus 1 liberal. So they're every day introducing legislations like this. Another one that I heard from San Bernardino County Sheriff is if there's a property owner and you actively sell to these guys and there's a grow happening on your property, every day that there's a grow, you get hit with a $10,000 fine. So, within 10 days, you're now at $100,000, maybe hitting them like that, because that's a big fine. So something like that I could see, because right now, $500 misdemeanor, I mean, these operations are up, the one that you see me embedded in, I'm in like an $100,000 operation. So it's like $500 misdemeanor. I can't see it that way. Maybe like a heavy fine like that. I like something on the water theft. I think every Californian could agree, because the water is the most precious part. And we interviewed people with water bills up to $1,200, $1,600, $2,200 because these cartels go in the middle of the night, will tap into their well and just pump it up. And, these guys wake up with this huge water bill, and the water district says, hey, well, it says it's coming from your household. We need that money by the 1st.
I'm not sure. I think I've seen signs when I lived in Santa Barbara that because there's tons of avocado orchards there, and in Ojai, California, and I think I've seen signs on properties that say, hey, if you steal avocados from here, it's a felony. And I think that there is a serious, because there is so much farmland in California, I think there are serious crimes about stealing food from farms. Basically, you've seen it as you drive up and down the 5 or the 101. Sure. I wonder if there's something there, but either way, it would just suck. It just sucks because I think someone is on the take, and it would just suck if the wrong people were getting busted.
I agree.
The problem, I don't have a problem with the growing the marijuana. I have the problem with the guns. I have the problem with the stealing of the water. I have the problem of dumping the toxins. And basically, it sounds like whatever laws they've passed to make marijuana legal were a joke. Because the whole point of those laws was to decriminalize it. And instead what they've done is they've incentivized even more criminal activity, which is kind of a joke.
And that's the thing too. And they're like another kind of factor is they're literally changing neighborhoods, because once the violence increases, the water theft, people don't want to live in these neighborhoods anymore. Right. So what they'll do is they'll put up the property to sell. Well, guess who wants to buy that property? It's these guys, because it's another kind of resident off the list for them, and it's more control of those neighborhoods. So they're changing even communities, and I really feel bad for these folks. The type of people that live in these communities are the type of people that don't want to live in the city, that want to raise their families away from the city, more a peaceful life where you could just hop on your quad, you could ride your horses. That type of living is what people are used to in the desert, and it's changing rapidly. So I really feel bad for these folks. Even yesterday, because I just got back to my hometown, I drove to an area called Neenak. And there was these 2 couples that we interviewed that they're featuring a dog. I went to go visit them one more time before the release of the documentary just to see how they're doing. Both of those couples are already putting their house on the market. One is headed to Texas. One is headed to Tennessee. And then the one who's headed to Texas literally told me that a cartel member approached them directly, and was asking about the house. And this is how you know that they're interested in using these houses as grow-ups. A normal homeowner wants to know about the bedrooms, the kitchen, all, regular home stuff.
The schools.
Exactly. These guys want to just know is where's your well and where's the other access to the other water line. So they don't care about the property. They just said, hey, where's your well and how close are you to the California aqueduct? So they knew that was a huge red flag. And the thing is that these cartel guys they're willing to pay way above the asking price. So if you're a real estate agent, you're making great commission. And if you're a real estate agent, this doesn't even affect you because you don't live in these communities where you're selling these homes. You're making a fat commission check. You get to look like a boss. When you talk to your colleagues of how you made a fat sell. So there's even that real estate aspect that's connected to this as well.
And you went into the one house, and there were those Chinese nationals. They're basically slaves.
Yes, sir.
And how does that work? They basically say, hey, we'll get you into the United States, but you're going to have to work. And then they come here and they're at the mercy of these people.
Yeah, so this is like I said, once again, it's connected to the border issue. So one of the things is how migrants pay their way here. I mean, one of the ways is they literally sell everything, and then they'll pay that smuggling fee with their own money. Another way is that these cartels got really smart and says, hey, all these migrants basically already got family in the U.S. So what they'll do is they'll collect the payment from the family in the U.S., then smuggle that migrant over. The third way, what we're seeing, and this is what Axios put out a report in the DOJ, is these migrants who can't pay off the debt with cash or anything have to pay off that debt with labor back in the United States. So, I don't know, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. So that's where you see these migrants literally getting treated like slaves, indentured servants. I mean, their living conditions are horrible, and they're working day and night with these grows, and they have to be armed because just in case they get in a gunfire fight with another cartel and another faction out in the deserts, it's something that we saw in San Bernardino County a lot. And the great thing is the sheriffs gave us a video of a cartel shootout that we put in the documentary. So it's like I said, it's something that like if you pull someone off the sidewalk and say, did you know this was happening? They would think, yeah, right. This is not happening in the U.S. That sounds like a movie. I'm telling you, man, it's right here. And I live in Palmdale, and I cannot believe that these guys are now in my community actively operating.
Yeah, it's nuts. When I saw it, I was like, wow. And I drew a parallel to it that 30 years ago, when I used to see, when I would be in India or Africa or somewhere, and I would see these tent cities, I'd be like, man, we don't have those in California. And now we have them everywhere. Right. And I would never, and I think this is somehow related to just this downgrading of our culture and of our country, that basically this can happen here now. I would have never thought that this could happen when I was a kid. And I don't think it was happening when I was a kid. And for some reason, it's okay now for people to be living under overpasses, and there to be 50 tents on every corner, and for the cartel to be growing on our land. It's absolutely nuts. So basically, they're not afraid of anything, because what the cartel does is they put these people there to work on these farms, and there's no risk to them except the cash. There's no risk in regards to, if the cops come, they don't go to jail.
Exactly. So everything that we're seeing has emboldened them. When we interviewed Tom Lackey, an assembly member out here, who says, well, everything is on their side. I mean, the thing is, the risk is so low and the reward is so high. I mean, it makes it worth it. If I was in the cartel, I'd be like, why are we starting up more illegal marijuana operations in the Antelope Valley? It's desert, it's rural. You have access to water. You have no law enforcement on you. You have the Americans that do live there are scared because they know you are violent, and we've seen those consequences. I mean, we spoke to one resident, and it's in the kind of last part of the documentary. Her and her husband were hiking out in an area called Neenak, Western Antelope Valley, and they accidentally stumbled on an illegal marijuana operation, and they accidentally stumbled on a trailer that, and we're in that abandoned trailer. You'll see it, where there was 40 migrants living in there, human smuggled, and they were approached by a cartel member who said, "Hey, if you come back to this area, we will shoot and kill you." He pulls out his phone, pulls up the photo, and he's like, "This is what we did to this guy last month." And it was a guy shot and killed in a red truck. We even rode up to where he was buried. We ended up getting film of it. That same guy who threatened them stopped our car when we were filming. So it's the real deal out there, and it's something when the sheriff is scared to go out there. I mean, they literally say, we're not going to go out there. We got to go out there with a whole unit. We got to go out there with other counties. We got to go out there with the DEA, DOJ. So it's happening. Like I said, this the first time that I personally heard about it, I think it was around 2017. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he was interviewing a man named John Noor, who was a park ranger. I believe they call it, I forgot the exact name for it, but he was our park ranger, I believe, for California Fish and Wildlife. And I think he was in San Bernardino County, where his job was literally looking at the environment, making sure there's water still in the stream. Hunters are not doing this, not doing that. And then he started to see that little by little, all the streams that he would basically monitor, the water would go out. And he was like, wait, where's this water going? And then he started to stumble on these illegal marijuana operations. And then those migrants that were operating those marijuana operations started to shoot at him. So he was like, wait a minute, we got a big problem here. And one of the things that he kind of mentioned was like, hey, we can't find enough park rangers that want to work this job, because who wants to be paid $35,000 a year and have a cartel problem every day you have work? It's just absolutely not worth it. So that was the first time I heard about it. It never reached my radar again. I believe Amazon in 2018, 2019, or I believe it was Amazon, they put out a documentary called Murder Mountain up there, I think where you live, brother, up there in like the North California area. Like I said, it kind of started there in Humboldt County, and now it's made its way to the desert. The thing, and then like I said, here, especially in the desert, look, this is affecting all California, but especially in the desert, we are in a major drought. So the water that is being wasted every day is really killing us, and it's hurting us really, really bad here. I can't put enough words on just the water aspect of this issue.
Are there meth labs out there too? Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah. So one thing is, even before the legal marijuana operation where I live, Antelope Valley, I believe we were ranked 3rd in meth labs that were happening out here. So like out here in the desert, obviously we got fentanyl labs, cocaine, meth labs. So that was something that was always here. And then now we're kind of hit with this illegal marijuana. So we're just getting hit every single angle out here in these desert communities.
Do you have any concern being a journalist on a story like this about your safety? I mean, obviously, while you're out there, there's the safety issue, but I mean afterwards.
Yes. So that's something that's been on my mind more, especially because the thing is the past coverage of this, you'll see in an article or two by a local media, no one has really taken this issue like head on, and so we're taking it head on. we're talking about it. We're giving speeches in different parts of California now, speaking about. I was just in Riverside County on Monday, speaking to a group of 400 people that are also affected by this and stuff. So I've been worried about it, man. But you know what? I'm really passionate about what's kind of happening in my home community. That that overweight.
Uh-oh, we lost you. You cut out, Jorge.
Oh, I'm back.
Okay. So you were saying you were passionate about it. It's your home community. Now you're gone again. Jorge, that's not bad. 50 minutes. 50 minutes without an outage. We have a water problem in California and an internet problem. I'm hardwired in. I'm a professional now. So I'm going to give Jorge the credit for this blip in the system, in the matrix. Jorge, you there? One of the things while we wait for Jorge to come back, one of the things he said that I believe is a huge problem is the defund the police thing. But here's why I think it's a problem. I think it's a huge problem, not because they're defunding the police, but because they say they're defunding the police. And if I was a police officer, and I do know a lot of police officers, it would really, really demoralize me. It would really demoralize me. As citizens, we are not doing our part. Uh-oh, this is getting worse. Now his screen went black. Let's see. We got a little spin wheel. How is it? Can you guys see me? I want to know if this is Jorge's fault or my fault. Can you guys see me? Is the show still up and running? Damn, Colin, you're on fire this evening. The name of the documentary, Cartelville USA. You can check it out at carteldoc.com. It is also being shown. Did he say on Fox? Where did he say? He said somewhere. When we get him back, we'll ask him. Let's see if he'll pop back on. Maybe I'll tell him. Oh, is he gone? No. Do you guys hear me? You're good. The bad cops demoralize the good cops. It's not even the bad cops, man. It's the society. It's the society. It's the one or two rotten apples that all of society is focusing on. It's the fact we have something like George Floyd, and everyone wants to blame every cop in the world for how bad they are. When in reality, the guy who's the bad guy is the guy who's driving around your neighborhood high on fentanyl, high on meth, putting guns on, doing home invasions, putting guns on women's stomach. Okay, you think he'll come back? Let me text him. Hold on. Try again. That was all caps. Let's see if he comes back. Society too. If we love the good ones, man, we love the cops. Yeah, I mean, we basically have to support all of them. We basically have to always give cops the benefit. We always have to give cops the benefit of the doubt. We cannot let one rotten apple spoil the bunch. You can't be like, hey, there's a guy who killed George Floyd, and therefore all cops are bad. You can't do that. You also can't make George Floyd a hero when he doesn't have a redemption story. He's not Malcolm X.
Did you see that vote, brother? Did you see that vote? Minneapolis, they had a chance to take away the whole police unit with a public safety team, and they rejected it. So there you go.
When did that happen?
Literally 2 days ago.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, think about this. The Capitol riots, 30 million in damage. The damage in Minneapolis to protest the killing of George Floyd, who was high, and I use the word killing only because they said it legally, who was high on fentanyl, high on methamphetamines, drunk, and who was a porn star. And by the way, you can go watch his porn on Pornhub or PornTube. I'm guilty as charged. You can, he was convicted for doing a home invasion and putting a gun on a pregnant woman's stomach. You can't just all of a sudden start hating all cops and be like defund the police. It's nuts. It's nuts. We have a deal with them the same way we have a deal with the mailman, the same way we have a deal with the garbage person. You got to put your garbage out. You can't park your car in front of your mailbox. These are the police. Same way we have with firefighters. This is why we need a better government cartel. I mean, sure. Jorge, we talked about the water issue. We talked about whether this can be fixed through eradication through police force, or whether it needs to be a law that's passed to de-incentivize them, change the competition around the business. We talked about how close this is happening to the border. Oh, this is what I wanted to ask you. A little off topic here. Oh, and so this can be seen in two places. You can go to cartel.com and watch this, or you can go to, where was it? Was it on Fox, or where was this?
You can go on our website with the Daily Caller. Just go on dailycaller.com and they'll have it really easy. Well, they'll redirect you to the website. So that's the great thing, is we have our own website for this. This is how you kind of don't have to really depend on the YouTubes anymore when it comes to shadow banning or any type of stuff. So we'll have our own website, either carteldoc.com. You could also get the trailer there as well. So if you want to send a friend or a family member the trailer before they watch the full doc, you have that ability too. And we're really, like I said, we're just excited to, be part of something like this, because this is the first ever documentary for the Daily Caller ever. So, no reporter has been able to do this. And I'm glad that we were able to do this. And to be honest, we did it without being, we're not Fox News where we have millions of dollars in backing and all that. Like, we had to do this from the ground up, lay all the groundwork, do all the dirty work. We had to do the risk ourselves. I think a lot of people always ask me, like, are you out there with security? It's like, absolutely not. It's literally just us. Like, there's a lot of these reporters that I've met and I've seen them in the riots. They could come, they do their quick live shot, and then they got a group of 6 guys that just throw them in this all black SUV and they go to their 5-star hotel and they sip cocktails all night. That's not us, man. So we were out there grinding every single day and night. I mean, people told us that we were stupid for being out there. We didn't listen. And, there hasn't been, and when it comes to this reporting on this story, there hasn't been as much video evidence footage, all this compiled ever. So you're going to see this. I saw a local report by CBS News, and look, it's not knocking them, great report. But the whole time the reporter was telling the story from a LA County Sheriff helicopter. So she's up in the sky. We went to the ground. We went to ground zero. We went to these grow ops by ourselves, flown drones over them and everything. So you're not going to see all this video evidence when it comes to this story compiled into this one big package with the interviews that we've gotten. I think people are going to find it very informative.
Yeah, there's so much hardcore reporting in it. The fact that you went back and revisited the drug bust 2 weeks after it happened and saw the rebuilding of it. The fact that you showed the Chinese nationals, you have the slave labor. The fact that you were in the house and you came across a gun as you're, the fact that you show all the massive grows. The fact that you show this barren desert landscape with just grows everywhere. And when he means grows, they if you didn't know better, it just looks like farms. But you just know that nothing would grow out there. And he shows all the hoop houses. And when you say hoop houses, that's because those are those things that we're all very familiar with in California because they're everywhere, right? They're basically just pop-up greenhouses that can be hundreds and hundreds of acres, right?
Yeah, and what they'll do is they'll have the white tarps, and then they'll also have a black tarp as well. So like that, these criminal cartels or whatever, they can manipulate the seasons, and they're able to get to about 3 to 4 grows per year. So this is how they also maximize that use of land there.
For those of you who don't know, by that he means, and I used to grow a lot of weed, so I know this. Marijuana is basically just seasonal, right? So you have to trick it into flowering. Flowering is what it does when it makes the marijuana. So you have to basically shorten the days and make the plant think winter is coming, and that's when it starts flowering. And that's what causes the marijuana. So what Jorge is saying is basically they can pull, even in the summer when the days are long, they can pull black tarps over the grow and trick the plants into thinking it's wintertime. And to do that, you also need a lot of free, cheap labor because that requires a lot of work. Someone has to be there twice a day to pull those tarps on and off. Jorge, there is some footage of you. I think I saw it on Fox, and I think I saw you being interviewed. I think it was on Fox. Maybe it was the Daily Caller, but you were at the border, different story. People were jumping subjects here, and you were doing some filming, and you were approached by a coyote with a gun.
Yeah. So I'll kind of
holy shit.
Yeah. So let me give you guys a quick breakdown, a little context on that story. So about 3 weeks ago,
please paint that picture. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I'm in so we our sources are saying, hey, head to Yuma, Arizona. So for those who don't know, all of our reporting on the border has been basically just Texas focused. So we haven't been to this part of Yuma. Our sources tell us go to Yuma because we're seeing all types of different nationalities, kind of cross through the sector called the Gap. So we go to this Gap, and the reason
by nationalities, you mean, what do you mean all different? By that you mean even more than Latins, more than like
Yeah, so when I got there, I was meeting men from Uzbekistan, from Georgia, from India, from Romania, from Brazil. I mean, I was like, whoa, we have just did it. We've never seen so many different nationalities kind of taking all this one round, and especially coming from, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even know what Uzbekistan was till I met these guys. I had to like research. I was like, wait, okay. So we go to this part.
You thought it was a made up country. Maybe it is.
So the reason why they call this one sector the Gap is because there's literally a gap of border wall, and the Mexican town across Yuma, Arizona is Los Algodones. So when I was there, I was fascinated by this one route because we would actually get video footage of these human smugglers, and they'll walk up right to the middle of that Mexico-U.S. boundary. In the middle of that, they call it the Colorado River. There's no water in the river, but they call it the Colorado River. And they'll literally take the cash payment from the migrants right there in the wide open before officially smuggling them into the U.S. So I found that fascinating because you didn't really get that in Texas. What we did get in Texas was the boat rafts, but we didn't get like actual,
and you saw evidence of payment through the bracelets.
With the bracelets, but
right.
we didn't get to see the cash. The cash transactions. I was fascinated by that. So I spent a whole week documenting that. I came back home, and I got these three other reporters called me and said, "Hey, Jorge, come back to Yuma. We want to document some of these human smugglers." I'm like, no problem. So I go back to Yuma, and it was a Friday morning. It's around 7 a.m. We get to the Gap. So I tell one of the reporters, his name is Justin. I say, "Hey, Justin, I'm going to go down to the midsection. Can you please come with me? I'm going to need an extra body down there." Because the thing is, when I was down there last week, and I kind of came back to the Yuma side, even Border Patrol was like, "Hey, man, like we don't even go down there because we're like afraid that we're going to get stabbed by these guys." He's like, so we're like, don't go down there. But I went back down there with my guy, Justin. And when we were filming this one human smuggler, now what made this already kind of a red flag is when we're down there and you see a human smuggler, they're always smuggling multiple people, at least 3 to 4 to 5, up to 10, 15, 20 people. So it's always multiple people.
How do you know who the smuggler is? How do you know who the smuggler is? Are they wearing different clothes or they're different ethnicity? How do you know which one is the smuggler?
I mean, it's just obvious. Like they're the ones who are like directing where the migrants to go, and they have like no backpack on them. So they're the ones who are giving them the directions, guiding them. So, like I said, you're always seeing these smugglers bring multiple people. So the red flag here was that this one guy, which we found out is mid-level to high-level cartel, according to Border Patrol. But so we see this one human smuggler only smuggling one male. This one male that he was bringing in had a big black backpack that Border Patrol was telling us they think there was a fentanyl in there. So that already was a red flag. So we see these two guys coming. Obviously, one of them is a human smuggler, and we're taking video. And the human smuggler is taking a cash payment as they're walking. And he's taking a cash payment. And to be honest, it completely slipped my mind because I was so fascinated by the video. It slipped my mind to be like, wait a minute, what's going to happen when he comes to the boundary and he sees me filming? Like, I just forgot that, we're going to have an altercation. So we're filming him. He obviously gets to the boundary. He notices that I'm filming, and his tone it was very aggressive. It was in Spanish. So the guy freaks out.
Wait. So real quick. So sorry. When you say the boundary, is it a no man's land? It's like not Mexico or the United States. It's just.
Yeah, it's kind of like a no man's land. Like there's like not a real boundary there to like, you can walk through, walk out, but you're kind of in the middle of it. What they call.
And if you look back, how far back how far back is the United States? How far back is a 7-Eleven?
I would well, back to the U.S. I would say less than. I mean, I think I would say like 300, 200 feet.
Okay, so, and then is there anyone over there, or you guys are just basically now out in the desert by yourselves?
We're basically out there, kind of on our own. We do call this kind of a no man's land, just because of you could just walk through and out. So we're filming. The guy obviously sees that we're filming, and is very angry. Is asking us why we're filming, who we were, and then as he's saying this, he puts his hand on his gun and just was getting aggressive. And then, so I stopped filming because I was already scared, and I stopped filming. And as soon as I stopped, he tells me a couple of times, put that phone on the ground, And so I'm assuming that he was going to steal the phone to basically take away the video evidence. So I don't know if this was like a fight or flight moment, but as soon as he told me that, my mind went blank, and all I did was turn around and I just ran right back to Yuma. And I kind of told myself, you know what?
And where was Justin?
Justin ran too. So Justin is running with me. So, and I was the one who ran first, and Justin followed my lead. But my kind of thinking was, I was like, you know what? If this guy shoots, then he shoots. But the ball is in his court. let's see if he's going to do it. But all I knew is I wasn't going to stay there, and I definitely wasn't going to give a cartel guy my phone. So, I get back to safety in the the border wall, and the two other journalists that we came with, run up to us. They're like, "Hey, what happened? What happened? We saw that." And we told him what happened. And then I looked
When
back.
you turned back around, did you see him? When you stopped running, you looked back?
No, I didn't even look back, man. I was just like, boom. And as soon as I got back to Yuma, I looked through the video, and then there was a part where I could get a perfect frame of him with the gun. So I screenshotted the video picture, and I sent the picture to a reporter. His name is Julio Rosas of Town Hall Media. Julio Rosas is a great friend of mine who's always on the front lines. We're basically brothers. We met during the BLM ride. So, when you cover those moments with somebody, you grow pretty close pretty quick. So I sent it to Julio. Julio gives me a call, make sure that I'm all right. Then I sent that photo to Bill Malusian of Fox News. And
Armenian. That sounds Armenian.
No, white guy. Bill
Damn.
Malusian. So I sent it to Bill Malusian. Bill goes back, is messaging me back and says, "Okay, man, you got to post that on Twitter." So I go on Twitter, I post it. It goes crazy viral, of course. And then, I go back to the border the very next. We go back to the same spot early in the morning next day, which is Saturday. We go back, and Border Patrol.
You and Justin go back together?
Yes. And then Border Patrol comes up to us and says, "Hey, were you those guys that encountered that armed human smuggler?" We said yes. And then he was like, "Our whole Border Patrol sector in Yuma had a whole briefing on that photo." And they're like, that photo was so good for evidence. He's like, "We're actually sending they call it a BORTAC, which is the Border Patrol Tactical Unit that is actually armed." So while we were down there, we got to see the armed Border Patrol agents actually running investigations. And according to our sources, they told us that guy that we ran into was a mid-level to high-level cartel member, and they believe the individual that he brought in large amount of fentanyl. That's why he was armed. That's why he was only smuggling one guy. So very, I'm just going to be straight up, very scary situation. I've never been in, I've been in some close kind of moments, covering rides, covering borders, but nothing where I was kind of front to face with a cartel member, and he was threatening me to shoot me, and he was threatening to steal my phone. So I've never encountered anything even remotely close to that moment.
Basically, he's trying to mug you too. Kill the evidence, and then who knows, kill what next. You're painting a picture that I think is important for clarification. As just your typical fucking wealthy white guy sitting here in my house in Santa Cruz, California, the way they depict the border is that the coyotes are smuggling people across the border because it's so dangerous to cross the border and they need help, and so they make money. That's not the picture you're painting. They're basically guarding the border. They're basically Border Patrol agents who are fucking that you bribe to cross.
Yeah.
It sounds like any jackass could cross. If they would just, if all the bad guys would leave, people could just cross, come and go on their own. These people are basically, so if I tried to cross, if I was a Mexican and or El Salvadorian or Haitian, and I tried to cross that border without paying, I wouldn't be worried about the U.S. Border Patrol.
Oh, absolutely not.
I'm worried about these other guys because I didn't pay the holy
Exactly.
shit. It's so crazy that they don't, that needs to be clarified. That needs to be so clarified that the border is not inherently dangerous. It's basically turned into a business.
Huge bit. And the thing is, for these cartels, they're just exploiting the migrant crisis, because for them it's like, hey, not only are we able to rake in extra cash, is these migrants, we're going to use them almost as like a diversion tactic. We could put in 100 people, smuggle them through Yuma. So meaning like on the U.S. side, Border Patrol agents now have to rush all their units to this one sector. They have to apprehend these migrants. They have to separate the unaccompanied minors from the families, processing, call extra units to pick them up. So when they're doing this, the fentanyl is coming into this country at a record. I mean, the border is already open, and then when you do this, it's just basically wide open. And the cartels, they love this stuff. The last figure that I got from a Border Patrol agent is every single day, these cartel groups or human smuggling groups are making up to $14 million a day just off the smuggling of humans. We're not talking even about the drug money that they're making. This is just off human smuggling.
You would think you could make the numbers where I could just go down there and be like, okay, I'm going to take $10,000 and I'm going to pay people $100. I'm going to pay them to cross the border, and I'm going to pay them to do it over here so that over here I can smuggle drugs across. I wonder if those caravans are cartel funded.
I would imagine that they are. You know, they have to be playing a role, because for them it's like, hey, this is like a gift for us, you know, because it's like, here's more of our diversion units, or whatever you want to name it. But yeah, it's honestly fascinating stuff to be at the border. And you know,
you're an anthropologist, you know that?
What was that?
You're an anthropologist. Don't let anyone tell you that you're a reporter. You're an anthropologist. Just the way I heard you say that when you saw the transaction going down and you forgot that, you know, you were studying it so much that you forgot you were going to have an encounter with them. It's like you're a guy that just saw two endangered species that are birds mate for the first time and you captured it on film. I mean, you sound like such an anthropologist. It's so awesome. No judgment, just observation. You're just taking it all in.
Yeah, man. And look, at the end of the day, we've never seen anything, you know, like this at all. My first time at the border was back in March. And I remember even in March, how fascinated I was, just because when you read about the border, you know, you're always reading the numbers and statistics and this and that. But when you're there and you get to see the actual bodies, the actual humans, the unaccompanied minors, the migrant women that were sexually assaulted and raped, it really changes the game. And that's what, and I think I've told you this before, but I think it's appropriate to call what's happening at the border a humanitarian crisis. I do believe that it's an appropriate label to call this a humanitarian crisis.
You know that saying that we're all within 5 degrees of separation of knowing each other, and it's amazing that that's true for those people too.
Yes.
So we're within 5 degrees, and that's where the humanitarian crisis is. We can't forget that these are, you know, it's our distant cousins. These are other people's moms, daughters, kids. And that's where the term humanitarian crisis comes in, right? Because these are just people and they're being abused. And yeah. And then on the other hand, the people who are abusing them are being put in this situation as being a means to an end for them. Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a mess. And President Biden, I just want to add, President Biden could really curb the illegal migration or migrant search all by reinstating and following the Remain in Mexico policy. I mean, that just removing that one policy just opened up the floodgates for this stuff, because, you know, if you're an illegal immigrant and you cross into this country and you look to seek asylum under Trump, you would have to remain in Mexico to that court order. So a lot of migrants were like, well, what's the point of me making this dangerous journey and paying the cartels only to be told that I have to wait in the border town, which is, as anyone knows, these Mexican border towns are extremely dangerous. So for them, the risk just wasn't worth it. And under Biden, the risk is super low. All they know is that as long as they get to the U.S., they're going to get released, and you know they're basically here to stay.
What happens if you get caught, then you get released in the U.S., and then they give you a court date, and then you don't show up to your court date, and then later on you get caught again? Nothing. As long as it's not a violent crime, you still just another court date.
All I know is that they'll just basically make you immediately go to the court date, and it's still like a long process. The problem is the system is so overwhelmed and backlogged with all these migrants that court order might not be for another 3 years. So that's something that Border Patrol mentioned to me, and he says only 13% of the time those migrants even show up to the court order. So essentially, if you come to the U.S., you get a court order. I mean, dude, you're basically free to go, because it could take up 3 years to get here. And if you're a migrant, you're like, well, why am I even going to show up? I'm already in the U.S. I'm, doing my thing. It's the whole system is just not. It's not helping us. We're letting all these people in who we don't even know if they're going to integrate into our culture. Do they even have the same values as us? I think that's really important questions to ask. Is our culture and our values in this country are changing so much. We got to make sure if we're bringing anyone in, is if do they believe the systems that we believe here in America? So that's another thing I think we need to talk about is the changing and dynamics of that as well.
Is it just not like as we talk, are people just coming across the border? Like it's just
absolutely. I mean, as we're talking right now, people are literally getting smuggled on boat rafts in Roma, Texas right now.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There's people just pouring over the border. Does anyone go the other way?
Good question. I think if things keep going like this in this country for this next year, you might have Americans having to seek refuge in Mexico.
So it's just a one way. Of course. It's just one way. Unless you're running, unless you killed your wife and your family and you're running from the feds, you don't go there. Yeah. Amazing. Hey man, I'm so excited that I got a chance to talk to you again. I'm so excited that I got a chance to see your documentary. You guys, I played the trailer of it at the beginning of the show. You can go to carteldoc.com. You should follow Jorge Ventura TV at Instagram. Is that your same handle on Twitter?
Twitter is going to be different. Twitter is going to be my last name, which is Ventura, and the word report in one, Ventura Report on Twitter.
Okay, that's where all the smart people go. Twitter, I don't go there. And I look forward to having you on again. Oh, one final question: what is next for you? What else? So you're still covering the border. What else is next for you?
So right now, the thing that we're working on a mini doc. I just got done with some filming of it, but I'm going back soon. Is out there in Loudoun County, covering the school boards, the teachers' critical race theory. So we're doing a doc on that. I'm gonna be back in the East Coast pretty soon, just to finish our filming on that. So that's gonna come out. Obviously, we have this coming out, and then after that, I believe we will be following a little bit of the fentanyl that's moving from Mexico and making its way to like the Rust Belt states, like the Ohio's, the Michigans, the Kentuckys. So we're gonna kind of be following fentanyl a little bit more. We're still gonna be following this illegal marijuana operation story. So you'll see me spending time in San Bernardino County, Riverside County as well, connecting with their sheriff. So kind of a little bit of everything. And anytime, if there's a big story that kind of pops up, news always changes, but if there's a big story, you better bet your ass off we'll be there on the front lines covering it. So a little bit of everything, but we got Loudoun County coming up. We got fentanyl coming up. We will be back at the border soon, because I know that caravan should be hitting us sometime in December. So you'll see me back at the border. So a little bit of mix of everything.
Jorge, this show, the Sevan Podcast, is a fantastic place for you to practice before you launch your next documentary. So come here, use this venue with just a few small people that watch here, and you can knock the rust off of your presentation. Please come back when that show is done.
I will say this: after we went on our first show together, man, it was amazing to see the amount of people that said, I've never heard about you before until Sevan's podcast. So I really appreciate the avenue that you really opened up for me, because I just love just the amount of DMs I was getting. Say, I've never heard about you before.
Cool.
That was really awesome to get. So I'm excited about that.
We're a small posse, but we're pretty we're pretty eccentric. My crew is the CrossFit crew. My crew here is basically people who believe in personal responsibility and personal accountability. And within the ranks, there are a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats and a lot of everything and a lot of libertarians. And we've basically used our fitness and our love for each other and support ourselves through a health crisis over the last 30 years to get on the same page. But then all of this shit started happening, right? Forcing kids to get injections, Black Lives Matter, pretending to help Black people, really just hurting Black people, calling people racism when they're absolutely not racist, calling people homophobic when they're not homophobic, changing the definition of words. That kind of brought us together even more. And like basically, since we are a personal responsibility, accountability cult, we're kind of like, fuck you. Try to cancel us. We'll come after your ass. We don't care. So,
I like that, man. And I did notice I got after our podcast, I got a lot of MMA guys following me. I think.
Oh, good.
I will tell you guys this: I am going to be looking here locally where I live, but I'm looking to sign up at an MMA gym soon. So hopefully I get in there.
Yes.
Start hitting the mats a little bit, because I really want to I need that self-defense out there, man. I really do.
Well, awesome. And I will talk to you soon. Stay in touch.
Have a good one, brother.